Hey, let's continue. The second rule from this report is the beneficence. Well, this means that we need to before we really launch a product supported by machine learning, and we need to foresee what is the risk and what is the benefit, and we want to minimize the risk and maximize the benefit, and then we also should have a plan to mitigate any realized harms possible. And for this part, I have a personal story. Well, if you are a gamer and you may know a product called Steam, right? And then in the Steam, well, probably 1 year ago, they launched a new feature called Steam Labs. Well, they are trying to add some new artificial intelligence stuff to the Steam product. And one of the product they launched in the Steam Labs is called Interactive Game Recommender. So, well, they're gonna ask me, do you like this game? And you click, I can click yes or no, and then based on a few clicks, and then they can continue recommend me the new games that I might be interested in. So of course, I want to try this feature and see how it works. And when I first started this, and they show me, hey, based on what you have played in last couple of months, and do you like this game? And I click yes, because that is the game I played for a long time. And then they asked me a few more questions, and they started to push me a total of 10 games. And when I saw those 10 games, and I'm not quite impressed, because for some of the games I have heard about them, but I'm not interested in that, and they are kind of similar to what I have been playing, but not that exactly the same, or they have some new features added to what I have been playing, but those are not the new features I appreciate that. So, well, is that harmful? And I would say no, not really. But if you launch a product supported by machine learning models, and then you need to really foresee what kind of harm it can show to the user. Well, and in Steam, and there are some of the games that I shouldn't really play unless I'm 100% sure that I'm by myself and no one is watching my screen. You know what kind of games they are, right? And I think you're all adults and you may know that. And anyhow, for those games, well, if they recommend me this kind of game, and then this may really harm my experience, because when I'm using the Steam Lab, and then there might be people sitting right next to me, and then if they see I'm browsing that kind of games, and this can be embarrassing, right? So this is some of the risk or the harm that you should really foresee. And then we want to talk about how we can really do that. And the first thing is we want to identify the potential flaws of your machine learning model before you really launch that, and especially when are providing this machine learning as a service to your user, and then you really want to foresee some of the flaws. And another thing is, well, if your system is designed to provide real-time feedback or interactive feedback to the author to the users, and then you want to pay attention to two things. Well, one is model inference attacks, and another one is model inversion attacks. So those are two of the common attacks that we can do harms to machine learning algorithms. And well, probably this is the first time you have heard about that, right? So, for example, for the model inference attacks, well, it means, if I have a interactive machine learning model, and when I give a input, it can always give me the output immediately, and then I can keep on probing the machine learning system so that I can figure out what kind of training dataset this machine learning algorithm is used. And then by figuring out what kind of machine learning, what kind of dataset it has been used, and then I can do more harms to the machine learning model. Okay, and another thing, well, you may also know, that another name of that is machine learning model poisoning. Okay, well, this kind of machine learning model is the machine learning that takes users input and then as part of the incremental training set. So let me give you a very small example. I'm only having a machine learning model which can predict dog versus cat, okay? And then it can take users input, and then if many users says this image is a dog, and then my machine learning model is going to take that as a dog. So if I'm ambitious enough, I'm picking up a cat image and I constantly say this is a dog, and then I bring up another similar image, a similar cat image, I say this is dog again. So if I'm doing this for a long time, and finally I'm gonna send a lot of poisonous additional incremental training set to the machine learning model, so finally this machine learning model can be poisoned. Okay, so those are some of the potential risks that we want to pay attention to, because when you are when you have a static machine learning model, you don't have to worry about this thing. But if you're providing a machine learning model as a service, well, machine learning can be vulnerable, and you want to pay attention to that. And the third rule we want to talk is justice. Okay, so for the justice, well, it has a very high bar. Well, and is the bar really always that high in industry? Probably no, because that is the bar for the word of the scientist. But anyhow, I want to show you what is that. So for the research, it should not target specific people. I'm talking about individuals. So if you want to do a machine learning model and then try to uh, take a specific person and using that specific person data and then try to predict something on this person, and this may not be ethical in the world of science. Okay, and another thing is, well, if you're trying to target a group of people based on their technical competency, or a group of people based on their personal demographics, and then that is not ethical as well. So as I said, this rule is a very high bar, and in industry probably the bar doesn't have to be that high. Okay, and later we are going to talk about what we need to do well, in the industry. And the last thing is, well, respect for the law and the public interest. And well, we really have to bring up the legislations, and we need to refer to the laws. And since I have been doing the educational data mining, and of course, FERPA is one of the act we really have to respect. And it says that if a if a kid is less than 18 years old, and then I have to obtain the consent before I can use the educational data for anything. Okay, so that is the FERPA law, and it's in United States, and it only protects the educational data. And in Europe, in the EU, and there is a GDPR. And the GDPR, well, if you only consider the educational data, and then it is the scope is kind of similar to the FERPA. However, this GDPR doesn't only protect the educational data, it protects all the personal identifiable data on the internet. Okay, so well, this means in the European Union or EU, the legislatures are a little bit ahead than what we have in the United States. Well, and there are a few cool things I want to highlight. So the first thing is, well, we need to use the data from a person, and we need to have a clear affirmative act. So, and then I have to give the specific, informed, and unambiguous information about what I'm gonna do, and I'm about to obtain the data from the person before I can really use that. So, well, if I just when you register for a website, for example, and then there are a bunch of the checkbox, and usually we don't even want to read that. We just check, right? So if there is a box pre-checked, and then that violates the GDPR. So if you are doing any business in Europe and you can't do this. Okay, and another really cool thing about GDPR is the user has the right to be forgotten. So even though I have a system and I have already collected the data from my users, and then they have the right to say, when I want my data to be deleted. So the user has the right to say that, and when the user said that, and then I have to do that. So that is really cool about the GDPR. So, and well, remember, FERPA is only protects the educational data, and for the GDPR, it protects all the personal data. Okay. Okay. So, well, let me pause here, and I'm gonna continue in the next video.